Night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5, the UK's biggest Saturday night TV show. I'm Alex Armstrong, along with Will Kingston, Dr. Renee, Matthew Stadlin, and Emma Trimble. Tonight on the show...
Discrimination is a good thing when it comes to immigration policy.
The trans movement hates women.
British homes for illegal migrants.
Two-tier free speech at the Home Office.
The right can learn a lot from Pope Francis.
It's 6 p.m, and this is the Saturday 5. Yes, welcome to the Saturday 5. Do you love our brand new rebrand? Doesn't it look so good? Very, very slick. Well, welcome to the Saturday 5. And in the news this week, the government has given 50 million to scientists to experiment with dimming the sun in the UK. All part of their ongoing plans to fight climate change, they say. Rumour has it that moments later, Labour ministers looked out at a cold, drizzly, grey skies in misery. They were completely blindsided at how quickly scientists got the job done. And Ed Miliband was also on the airwaves again this week, wasn't he? Reminding the country how adept Labour politicians are at economics. In a car crash interview, he failed to grasp how energy company taxes can impact consumer prices. It's now rumoured he's seeking to brush up on his mathematics with a one-to-one tutoring session from Diane Abbott. GB News exclusively revealed this week that Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips said she and the Home Secretary couldn't meet with rape gang survivors due to demands on their time. Well, spurious rumours suggest Phillips made the comments moments before dashing off to an interview with the BBC talking about her own safety. And Gary Lineker claimed the BBC tries to appease the people that hate the BBC. Which is rather fitting, considering he said it during a BBC interview broadcast by the BBC with a man who's had more fallouts with the BBC than Sasa Lucic has yellow cards. And finally, Kemi Badenoch came out swinging this week as she declared Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer doesn't have the balls. Well, the Prime Minister was rumoured to be completely astounded by the comment and frantically called up Supreme Court judges to check if only biological men could indeed have balls. And of course, we want to know your views as well, so please send them in throughout the night by going to gbnews.com/your say. And don't forget to send in your questions for Ask the 5. No topics are off limits. And vote in the poll today as we're asking you, for a first time ever actually, what we should scrap on. So, should we cosy up to the EU or do a trade with America? Does Labour have a woman problem? And should we be worried about rich people leaving the UK? Please go and vote now at gbnews.com/poll. But before we start tearing each other apart, it's your Saturday Night News with the brilliant Sophia Wensler.
Alex,
Thank you. Good evening. It's just gone 6 o'clock. These are your headlines. Pope Francis has been laid to rest in Rome after an historic open-air funeral attended by world leaders and royalty. More than 1 million people lined the streets as his coffin was taken from St. Peter's Square to his favourite church, Santa Maria Maggiore. Prince William, Joe Biden, Donald Trump and Sakir Starmer were among the dignitaries who paid their respects. Over 250,000 mourners viewed the 88-year-old's casket while it lay in state over 3 days. It's the first time in more than a century a pope has been buried outside of the Vatican. Sakir Starmer and Volodymyr Zelensky have agreed to maintain momentum towards peace in Ukraine during talks in Rome. Downing Street said the two leaders had discussed recent advances towards ending the war. The meeting came on the sidelines of the Pope's funeral, where Zelensky also had a one-on-one with Donald Trump inside St. Peter's Basilica. The Ukrainian president says it was a good meeting that has potential to become historic.
Productive meeting. I don't want to go to a lot of details, if it's possible, because the questions, very sensitive questions, on, of course, totally it's about how to bring peace closer and how was resultative, positive Paris and London, and we want to continue such meetings to bring peace to Ukraine.
Meanwhile, President Trump has admitted Putin may be, quote, tapping me along. Taking to social media site Truth Social, he said that maybe Putin doesn't want to stop the war and has to be dealt with separately. In other news, Virginia Giuffre, who accused Prince Andrew of sexual abuse, has died at the age of 41. Her family say she took her own life at her farm in Western Australia after what they called a lifelong battle with sexual abuse and trafficking. Giuffre sued the Duke of York in 2021, claiming he had sex with her when she was just 17 after being trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. Prince Andrew has always denied the allegations and has not been charged with any crime. If you've been affected by this story, you can contact Samaritans on 116 123 or at jo@samaritans.org. Now, some breaking news. 3 people have been injured following a serious incident in Leeds after a man with weapons was arrested on a popular pub crawl route. West Yorkshire Police confirmed that a man was located and detained at Otley Road at 2:47 p.m. today. The injuries are not thought to be life-threatening at this point. A number of police officers remain at the scene, and the force added inquiries into the initial stages to determine the wider circumstances are ongoing of what has taken place, and further updates will follow. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to the Saturday 5.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
It's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday 5. Over the next 3 hours, the biggest debates, hottest topics and entertaining interviews are to come. But first, let's crack on with tonight's first debate. And, of course, I'm going to kick us off.
Of course.
Of course. In yet another slap in the face of British people, it was revealed this week the government has indeed decided to use private companies to sweep up housing across the country to house thousands of illegal migrants. It won't come as any surprise to you that the migrants won't be paying a penny, of course, despite spending thousands to get here. Instead, according to reports, they're getting a golden ticket. 5 years of guaranteed rent, paid for by you, the taxpayer, to house asylum seekers, while locals scramble for homes. Private companies working for the government are promising landlords that all maintenance, repairs, bills and property management will also be covered as part of the deal to house these illegal migrants. Meanwhile, a whole generation of people in this country are suffering the highest cost of living in memory. House prices are through the roof, bills are up extortionate amounts, and rents are pricing locals out of their own towns. That's without even mentioning our homeless veterans living on the streets and people who've hit hard times, many of them told they are not a priority for housing. Frankly, it makes me feel sick, and I'm sure it does many of you at home. Once again, British people are last and illegals are first. The constant betrayal of British people will not be forgotten, though, will it? A reckoning is coming. I say, start the deportations now and put British people to the front of the queue. Well, Renee, this is quite a shocking story, isn't it? As if we hadn't had enough with the hotels and everything else in this country. Now British taxpayers are going to be housing illegals while they can't even get homes themselves.
I think this is really interesting, this decision, because obviously it's designed to massage the figures so that hotel numbers will go down and people will think that we're winning in this battle. But actually, we've already seen a deluge of landlords, and I am one of them, who have sold their single flats or houses since this government came into power because it was already hard enough to get rid of errant tenants who are smashing the place up. Took me 20 months without rent, by the way. And so already the market has got smaller because of the Labour approach to the Renters' Rights Bill, and now this is going to further deplete the renters' market and increase rents. Everything for British people that should be happening isn't happening.
Matthew, of course, you know, the government would argue this is cheaper than hotels, but many taxpayers are going to be sitting there saying, why am I still paying for this crisis? Labour promised they'd get it under control when actually the numbers are going up.
So, first of all, you're right, and it's not just a government argument. It is cheaper than hotels, so it could be as little as £14 a night per person, rather than around, or as much as, or maybe, I'm not exactly sure whether it could be even more, but £140 per night for hotels. Secondly, there is a duty of due process in this country. That's one of the reasons people want to come to this country. It's one of the reasons I'm proud to be British. We have the rule of law, and that means that if people come here, you call them illegals, they are asylum seekers.
Well, they have come here illegally.
They are asylum seekers and they have to have their claims processed. The government would argue that it is speeding up that process, which is obviously important because people who have no right to be here should indeed be deported. It's very easy when there's a cost of living crisis, and there absolutely is, and tens of millions of people in this country are struggling with the cost of living. Many of the people watching this programme, maybe some of us, to point the finger at others. The cost of living crisis, it's got nothing to do with people who are trying to get into this country. It may surprise you, by the way.
Well, hang on. Let me just challenge you on that, Matthew, because if we're spending billions and billions of taxpayers' money to house, hotel, accommodate, benefits, everything else, then surely that's going to have an impact on the tax system in the country, which therefore is passed to consumers who are facing higher cost of living. So I would challenge your argument on that.
If the boat stopped tomorrow, there would still be a cost of living crisis.
But it wouldn't be as bad, surely.
No, I'm not saying the cost is nothing. It may surprise you. Talk about Brits being pushed to the back of the queue. In 2022, there were more than 1 million empty homes in England alone. So the idea that there is some sort of scramble and that Brits are being pushed to the back of the queue, I think is highly debatable at the very least.
OK, Will?
Of course it has something to do with the cost of living crisis because we don't have infinite amounts of money, so you need to make decisions on where you spend your money, and you can either spend it on British citizens or foreign citizens. The second thing is these may be cheaper than hotels, but they're also more expensive than a detention centre, and this is the big problem in this debate, is unfortunately at the moment what we're doing is we continue to provide incentives for people to come. And what that does is it encourages more people to risk their lives at sea. And what I keep saying, and I've said it on this show before, is the compassionate argument is to have detention centres where you create a disincentive to risk your life at sea. And we're not doing it. The right has the compassionate side of this debate. They're not taking that at the moment.
It's also, I think, that there's the point that never, I mean, it never really gets made in explicit terms is for all of the left to talk about compassion, they've got absolutely no compassion for British people, for people who are already here struggling to get on the housing ladder, for people who are already here who are homeless. I mean, we've seen just this week people sleeping rough directly opposite a migrant facility. So if the government are coming in and they're buying up housing stock with the specific intent to use that housing stock to house migrants at a time when there are not enough homes for British people, livable homes, regardless of whether they're empty or not, that is unjust. It's morally wrong.
I mean, this argument about 1 million empty homes, Matthew, of course you're right, but those homes are owned by people who have invested their money that they've earned into a home What they do with it in my book is their business. But that aside, we have a critical housing issue. I have a young man who's my patient who is severely ill mentally, and he's severely ill, who is being housed 4 boroughs away from his parents and his family because he's a young man and they can't house him in my borough. I have mothers living in multiple occupancy houses where they're scared to go and use the kitchen. You know, these are people who should be at the front of the queue, but they won't be because there aren't the houses there.
I'm just disputing that there's a competition between the people who, as you say, have genuine need and the people who are trying to get into this country, some of them genuine asylum seekers, many of them, maybe roughly half genuine asylum seekers who also have genuine need. The idea that the right is compassionate on this, I mean, I was debating someone very recently on GBNews, a former UKIPper, I think, a former UKIP politician, who was saying that people were waltzing across the channel. You've just explained how incredibly dangerous it is. People are only risking their lives because they are desperate to get here. We need to treat them with humanity.
OK.
It doesn't matter that they have any right
Sorry,
to.
guys, sorry. I've got to read this right reply here from the Home Office. These arrangements with private rent in the private rented sector have been in place for years, including under the previous government. We have a statutory duty to support destitute asylum seekers who will not be able to pay for fees such as utilities and council tax. OK, moving on. Matthew, you are up next.
Yeah, my argument is simple. I'm not a Catholic myself. You don't need to be a Catholic to have been impressed by much of what the late Pope Francis achieved in his 12 years, I think it was, as the head of the Roman Catholic Church. I was actually confirmed as an Anglican Christian before I lost my faith. But what the Pope preaches in his very approachable way, he wanted to spend time with ordinary people like us, is that we should be compassionate. And he clearly had an enormous amount of compassion himself. He was the opposite of a grand pope, a pompous pope. And my argument is simple. All of us, and that includes the right, have an enormous amount to learn from him. And what I see sometimes in some sections of the right in this country, and I think in America as well, is the misuse of Christianity to justify the things that are opposite to compassion. You see the vilification of immigrants, whether they're here legally or illegally, the toxicity surrounding them, the toxicity surrounding the trans debate as well. And I think, actually, as someone who was confirmed of my own free will, I wasn't christened as a baby, I came to Christianity of my own accord, I understand that the tenets of Christianity are incredibly powerful. And even if you leave the God bit out, and of course to tens of millions, maybe 1.5 billion in the case of Roman Catholics, the God bit is a lot more than a bit. But even if you leave the God dimension out of it, if we were all to live our lives according to the core tenets of the Christian faith, we would be a much kinder and better society. In other words, just to finish, love thy neighbour, do to others as you would have them do to you.
OK, thank you. Emma?
Well, I'm loath to get into a theological debate with Matthew Stadlen on the implications of a person's personal theology on their political opinions, but I would say, I mean, Pope Francis had a very big heart, and one cardinal has pointed out this week, or he's said that in looking forward to what sort of pope that we might see next, that it would be an ideal to have all of the characteristics combined of John Paul II's missionary spirit, of Pope Francis's enormous heart and Benedict's theological rigour, and I'm sure that Matthew Stadlen would disagree enormously with Pope Benedict. But I do think, you know, it's not an issue of right or left to have that kind of humility and that kind of enormous heart.
Yeah, I mean, do you think this whole, the Catholic... I mean, we say it's not political, don't we? We often say, oh, you know, there's nothing political about religion, but there is, isn't there, really, Will?
Well, there was under the Pope. That's the thing. It comes down to what we think we mean by compassionate. And if you think you mean following the scriptures, then I would say that is compassionate in the eyes of a Christian. But he went beyond that and did what so many people on the left these days do, which is associate compassion with progressive woke ideology. And a lot of people in the church were incredibly frustrated when he took on the climate change agenda, when he took on a lot of other highly political crusades, which went well beyond the teachings of Christ. And I think that's something which was divisive. It wasn't something which brought people together. So as much as you can, I would say, in a position like this, and this goes to who they will elect next, when you say compassion in the eyes of Christ, not compassion in the eyes of the progressive liberal establishment.
Yeah, Renee, I mean, he was laid to rest today, of course. So
yes.
we remember all the good things, and, you know, he obviously was a man at the end of the day, was he not?
Yes, he was a man, and I think he was. I think he was actually a very compassionate man. I agree, and I think there are, of course, lessons that we can learn by it. But that goes to both things. So when you talk about, for example, as you say, climate change and trans activists, you know, the violence against women that we have seen from the luxury position of those saying that they support trans, they have a lot to learn from Pope Francis too. That's all I'm going to say.
There's been viciousness, as we all know, if we're honest.
Well, we'll come to that.
There's been viciousness on both sides of the trans debate. There are plenty of misogynists, women haters, sexists who support the trans movement, as it were, if we're being really simplistic in our terminology, and plenty of misogynists on the other side who use women in this studio as a fig leaf for their bigotry and their hatred.
But I mean,
misogynistic to describe me as a fig leaf.
I want to bring it back. I mean, let's bring it back to the point, because I think, you know, listen, I mean, at the end of the day, whether you disagreed with him or agreed with him, he is the figurehead of the Catholic Church, is he not? And what he says has an impact on the way Christians view and take action in their own lives.
Yeah, and I think there's a theological point to be made about this too, because, you know, popes are also human beings. The Pope is just a man, but he also has the authority that goes all the way back to St. Peter. So there's an element of divine providence acting within the institution of the Church, within the role of the Pope. And it might be that, you know, on some things we don't necessarily agree with him, but, you know, the law works in mysterious ways, and we don't, you know, we had Benedict before him. So, yeah, I think, obviously, I would prefer to see somebody who is a bit more traditional, but I'm not going to say anything unpleasant about this Pope on the day of his funeral.
That would be really interesting, right? Because I think that will give us a light into how captured the Catholic Church is as a whole. Will they go for another progressive, or will they go for a more socially conservative Pope? And I think that will... Go on.
Well, no, it's actually very interesting, because, I mean, the chances of us getting a more progressive, another progressive Pope is very high. But what's interesting is that younger people tend to prefer the more traditionalist forms of worship, and actually those forms of worship that were very much marginalised by Pope Francis, for example, banning the traditional Latin Mass. So that's actually what young people want, but the chances of getting a progressive Pope is actually quite high.
You know, there's record amounts of young people converting to Christianity at the moment. I think you were talking about this not that long ago, Emma. What is it you think young people want to see exactly?
Seriousness. They want...
Be explicit, because, you know, we've got to, like, what are conservative values in Christianity?
Well, I think in the most fundamental way, the reason why young people are being drawn to more traditional forms of worship, whether it's Pentecostalism, Catholicism, or Catholic forms of Anglicanism, where the congregations are growing, in Anglo-Catholicism, it's because young people are attracted to the seriousness. They're attracted to those within the Church who preach the gospel as truth. They're not saying, you know, yeah, all truths are equal. There's no relativism there. There's no woolliness. They are teaching it without cringing, without being shy or in any way embarrassed by saying that this is the truth. And they're looking for some structure in their lives. And I think the reason why people are attracted to it is because they are surrounded by so much radical untruth of things like trans activism and all of the progressive movements. And it makes Christianity more appealing because it is true. And so actually, theologically, it's not really about conservatism in the political sense. It's about people being attracted to those fundamental things, those that are fundamental to our culture in the West, the basis of Western civilization, and people are hungry for it.
OK, well, that's that. Still to come tonight.
Very eloquent. You did ask, Alex, you asked.
Across the UK to protest the Supreme Court's ruling on biological women. But Renee thinks they may have different motives. But next, is it time the government halted migration from poor countries? We'll think so. You're with the Saturday 5, live on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point.
Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah,
and now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay and get your questions in for Ask the Five. Thank you so much for your messages coming in so far. I will read some of them out very shortly. But now it's time for our next debate. Who would like to go next?
I'll take that one, please, Alex. And geez, I'm loving those graphics. They are slick, aren't they? Ladies and gentlemen, the Labor government, yes, Labor, have made the decision that they will be publishing data on crime by nationality. This is long overdue. It's welcome news. And it will, I believe, put numbers to a sentiment that all of you feel out there. And that is that mass migration has fueled a wave of crime across this country. Robert Jenrick, who's been very strong in pushing for this, pointed out just some of the data that we actually already have in relation to this crisis. Let's have a look at that clip from Jenrick.
Is mass low-skill migration making you safer? Well, the indicative data suggests that it's not. For example, Afghans and Eritreans living in this country are 20 times more likely to commit sex crimes than British nationals. In fact, foreign nationals are 71% more likely to commit a sexual crime than a Brit.
Extraordinary. In fact, just before we came on air, someone told me that 1 in 5 Albanians in this country have been arrested. 1 in 5. It is shocking. Now, all the Guardian lovies and BBC lovies have come out and said, well, this will just stoke further division. What possible good could this be for us as a society? Well, apart from the fact that you as citizens deserve to have transparent information on issues that relate to your safety, the other big thing here is obvious, and that is that this data should obviously inform our immigration policy. This isn't a school carnival where everyone from around the world just gets a fair go. This should be more like an elite club. And what that elite club should do is discriminate on the basis of countries that share our values, like countries from the Anglosphere. It means that we should stop immigration from radical fundamentalist Islamic countries, which I promise you will be overrepresented in that data when we see it, and we should stop immediately having immigration from countries in the third world where, again, they are overrepresented in the crime data that we already have available to us. This is a very simple issue, ladies and gentlemen.
Can I just want to clarify something, because I was actually on Patrick's show this Tuesday when Robert Jenrick was talking about this issue, and my understanding is that we're not going to get a full breakdown of statistics. We are going to get a very, very much watered-down version, one that only shows the crime stats for people awaiting deportation, which is very different from getting the crime stats per person, is it not, Renee?
It's completely different.
Is it a cop-out? Do you think it's a cop-out?
It's a cop-out. They don't want us to have the data because I think they probably feel, rightly so, that people are angry enough already and they don't want to throw fuel on that, and I kind of understand that. But I think we have a right, as the people who actually donate our money for them to run our country, to have that. But I don't think I'd be a sweeping issue. I don't think I'd say no one from the third world, because, you know, there are third world countries where there could well be people who do have the potential to be scientists and doctors, but we do need to be very selective over who we let in.
Do we have the resources to be able to go through that selection process
Probably
in a
not.
way which ensures the safety of the women and children of this country?
Yeah.
That is the issue.
I know.
Matthew, what do you make of this? I mean, obviously, the big part of this, really, you know, putting this data out there was for transparency reasons that Robert Jenrick would argue. Do you think that this data is irrelevant?
I think you have to be incredibly careful with data. You know what they say about lies, damn lies and statistics. Of course you do. And I simply don't know whether what came out of Robert Jenrick's mouth right there is correct or not. For example, I imagine that you have disproportionately young Eritreans and Afghans coming into this country, so you're not necessarily comparing like with like, because older British people are less likely, perhaps, to commit the sort of crimes we're talking.
Raises the question as to why they're here.
You'll correct me if I'm wrong, Will, but are you from Australia? Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Right,
That notoriously criminal country is disproportionately represented in the crime.
The Australians have gotten over it.
As we know, Australia has a major issue with violence against women and a major issue with misogyny.
If you're insinuating that Australian compared to Eritreans or Afghans or Somalis, that is an absolutely stupid comment.
Will, come back to it in a second. Let Matthew finish.
I honestly, I can mix it with anyone. So if you want to shout at me and interrupt, I'll do the same for you. But I think it will break down. I think it will break down. No, I'm not talking about fighting you. I'm not talking about fighting you. I'm talking about shouting over me. So if you want, when there are four people who are roughly agreed on stuff and one person, me, who is not, then do me the courtesy of listening.
Right, let's get back to it. Come on.
So on the issue in question, we have a major problem in this country with violence, sexual and otherwise, against women and girls. Every 3 days, someone is murdered, a girl or a woman is murdered by a man. I am the father of a very young daughter, and as she grows up, I won't be educating her to watch out for foreign men. I will be educating her to make sure that she keeps safe from all men, because guess what? If she were ever, heaven forbid, please God, may that never happen, the victim of a crime as a girl or a woman, I don't care whether it's someone from abroad or it's someone from here. What I care about is keeping my daughter safe.
OK, Emma?
Woman here. Look, I think the idea that you could suggest that Australia is a particularly bad country for crime against women when you compare it to somewhere like Afghanistan, where girls can't go to school or speak in public, is just completely outrageous.
Women are public
the left,
to death.
Exactly, and the left talk all the time about things like rape culture and the patriarchy, but seem to have a total blind spot when it comes to the fact that there are countries and cultures around the world that very much are that, and rather than here in the West where women can basically do whatever they like, I think, and very rightly, there is a group that has just been established. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but Jess Gill is involved in it, and they are campaigning for women's rights in the face of this migration. This country is less safe if we have open borders because we don't know who on earth is coming in. So it just seems like a complete no-brainer that women are less safe if you don't know what kinds of criminals might be coming into your country.
I think it was summed up today by somebody who's fighting their deportation from one of those African countries. And in his own submission, he actually said that it should be ignored his sexual crime against a woman because he didn't understand the social rules of the UK.
That's obviously rubbish. Let me just come back on very briefly on Afghanistan.
Because we're running over time.
OK, but you're lumping the whole left together for a start, which I think is unhelpful. The way the Taliban treat women is sick beyond anything that most of us could even imagine. Of course it is. It is not the government's policy to bring in a whole lot of low-skilled Afghans to this country. It's simply not the policy. Some Afghans who are fleeing the Taliban are trying to get into this country. We then have to process their applications.
OK, right. Moving on. It's now a very, very, very big change in tone here. Time for the Great British Giveaway. And it's our biggest prize to date. Here are all the details.
You could be spending your summer in style, on the road in this brand new Alnag Baron 560 motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure. Imagine the fun you could have in this luxurious home from home worth over £67,000. It sleeps 4, comes with integrated kitchen and bathroom spaces, and comfortably has space for all the family. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash to make your next getaway a great one. It's our biggest prize package ever, and it could be all yours. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck. Still to come tonight, Dr. Renee is going to be talking about the trans movement. You're not going to want to miss that. You're live on the Saturday 5 with GB News.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you are thinking of heading south for a holiday, it's looking sunny in Spain, but very wet in Sardinia, whilst Greece is currently experiencing showers and they'll continue into Sunday. Keen breeze here as well, particularly for the islands. Showers also for Italy, but mostly inland and over higher ground. It's Sardinia and also Majorca where we're likely to see some lively thunderstorms, whilst plenty of sunshine prevails across Spain. And Portugal, more sunshine to come through the week ahead.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Say that Mia Collins joins us in the studio now. Morning, Mia. Really good to meet you. And what's it like for you watching that experience back?
Lots of fond memories. I loved my time in the process, and, you know, TV shopping was definitely one of the big highlights for me. I loved it.
Was it really?
Genuinely, I really, really enjoyed it.
Because I wonder how much of these challenges and tasks do you come away from thinking, oh, that was awful?
For me personally, there weren't many occasions where I thought, oh, God, you know, what I've been able to do now is look back on all 10 episodes, and I'm actually really happy with my performance, so no regrets.
You're consistently strong.
Thank you.
That's why I was so shocked when you went out as number 6. I honestly thought you'd make it through to the final, but it was just that one mistake, wasn't it?
It was the wrong decision at the wrong time. Had it been another task, maybe I would have survived it through, but, you know, it's so difficult to get to that final 5, and Jordan and Anissa are really strong candidates, so I think I just drew the short straw.
I mean, did you go into it thinking this would help you as a business person, or is it a door to get into media, or I mean, what was the point of going on?
I think if you look at the kind of the general age of candidates nowadays, it's a younger audience, and I've grown up watching the show. So from my perspective, I'd always just grown up watching it, thinking, God, I really do think I could do that. I am in the midst of prep for my bodybuilding competitions, so my time is very always centred around training and trying to get as much content and insight into that as much as I can. I think bodybuilding is one of those sports that not many people know all too much about, and I think there's a few misconceptions of it. So if I can educate people and bring correct information about the sport through means that I enjoy, then so be it. And whatever comes of it, comes of it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5, everybody. I want to read out one of your comments. What do they say here? Australia has its problems, but it's in a far better state than the UK. My son has just come back from a holiday there and said it's a breath of fresh air getting around. No traffic jams either. What are you doing here, Will?
Sometimes I do feel like I've boarded the Titanic after it hit the ice.
You might very well be right. But please keep sending them in gbnews.com/yoursay. I'm watching them and get your questions in for After 5. That's the best part of the show. We get to actually talk about you. But now it's time for our next debate. Who's brave enough to go next? Oh, that was quick.
There's no poll this week for the favourite member.
Exactly.
Teacher's pet. So let me talk to you about the trans movement. So it's been 10 short days since the Supreme Court ruled that a woman was just a woman, nothing else. And since then, we've seen hysteria, self-pity, catastrophising from trans women who believe the world is coming to an end. This tiny little group of people, we are told, who seem to dominate the airways, although all they want to do is live their life peacefully, if only. But what we've really seen is the misogyny and the hatred of women that underpins this trans movement. These narcissistic men who detest women, and they really do. And in that age-old fashion of misogyny, they want to silence women. They want to curtail their movement, control them, limit their liberty, and take away their hard-won rights. They don't feel any empathy for us. They don't feel empathy for women. They don't understand us because they hate women. They don't want to hear women's voices, only their own. And just look at the posters from these trans protests, which went on last week. They've gone on in 20 towns around the country today. They're threatening death, violence, and slinging vulgar insults at women. No decent man or woman would direct such vile vitriol at a woman for merely wanting to be safe in her own space amongst her own sex group. Remember, all of the violence that happens against women, almost all of it, is committed by men. Not all men are violent to women, most of them aren't. But we just don't know which ones are. So we want our own space and we don't want men in it. So my question is this: when is society, when are the government, when are the police going to stop allowing these threats and incitement to violence against women that are in plain sight?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Will, you're quite an anti, like the extreme trans activist groups. Do you think that they have a point to say that, you know, there's not spaces for them and therefore they're being discriminated against, or is this just an attack on women?
It's an attack on women, is the short answer. And then specifically on the free speech issues, look, I, as you know, have a very, very high bar for what should constitute a speech crime. The thing that annoys people is when they see those types of placards, when they hear the stupid band at Coachella and they realise that there are people in jail who have done precisely the same thing, where there was no link to clear incitement of violence, and they get away with it because they can be tied to a political ideology which is aligned with the establishment class. That is what is so frustrating about this.
Matthew, so, you know, I mean, there's obviously, we saw some of those placards. Keir Starmer didn't make any comments about them and say, you know, I mean, he was, you know, you'd expect him almost to say, like, we don't appreciate this kind of violence. And I think, you know, given people like Rosie Duffield had threats to them made before because she's, you know, is gender critical of the trans movement. Yeah, does the Prime Minister have to come out a bit stronger on this?
You have to ask.
What's your opinion?
I mean,
what's your opinion?
My view is that quite possibly he should have come out and said that there should be no threats towards women, because, of course, there shouldn't be. Any threat, whether a death threat or any form of threat towards a woman by someone who allies themselves or aligns themselves with the so-called trans movement, obviously should be condemned out of hand. The issue here is that there is hatred and, indeed, misogyny, as I said earlier, on both sides of this so-called debate.
Can you give us examples of that?
I've seen horrible transphobia, old-fashioned transphobia,
Like
calling people who have transitioned. I'm not saying that they've.
But how's that misogyny?
Let me just make the point. I'll come to the misogyny. I'm talking about the hatred first. We're trying to answer a question first. Horrible hatred to trans people that 5 years ago would have been dismissed as old-school transphobia. Calling people who've transitioned, who've gone through that painful, difficult, vulnerable process, I imagine, a man. Yes, of course, you can't change your biology, but you don't single out people with viciousness. As for the misogyny, just quickly to answer your point on the misogyny, a lot of the people who support women's rights, by the way, I am one person who supports women's rights. I quite understand why many women are fiercely defensive of those rights. A lot of women, by the way, don't see this debate as a big issue for them, but lots do, and I respect and understand that. But a lot of the men who support that movement absolutely would be the first people to make a sexist or misogynist comment in another context. They use this because they want to get at minorities.
Yeah, go on, I'll bring
OK, just put those aside, because we know that men can be misogynistic. That's not what's at debate here. I think to compare calling a man who is a man with saying that we should kill someone.
I'm not comparing
You did. You said there's been violence on both sides.
I'm not comparing that. I really am not.
I asked you
a death threat is in a different category. If you issue a death threat against J.K. Rowling or anyone else, any of the other prominent women in this debate, you should go to prison. Let's be completely clear about that. I'm now making a new start to a new sentence. If you call someone who has transitioned, who's gone through that process, if you call them a man, that is old-school transphobia, and we should call it out.
I want to bring Emma in.
Look, I think there's an irony and a real strategic failure in somebody who wants to enter a woman's space holding up a sign that says the only good turf is a dead turf. But this, there are trans people like Debbie Hayton, for example, who have welcomed this judgment because they know that they are not biological women, and the only way to protect the rights of biological women is for that to be the law. For women to be a biological category, trans people are trans people, whatever, but this is about protecting women's rights. And I think that any trans person that has an issue with that and would go out in the streets and protest against women securing their rights is not somebody that I would particularly want to be in a woman's space.
Where should a trans man go to the loo?
Sorry, guys. I have to move the conversation.
Really?
I'm really sorry. I have to move the conversation on because we have some breaking news coming for you very shortly. Up next, a shocking attack has taken place in Leeds, leaving 3 people injured. Our home and security editor will join us for the latest on this developing story. Please stay tuned. You'll be the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. The second half of the weekend will promise more sunshine around for many of us, particularly across England and Wales. Though for Northern Ireland and Scotland, the cloud is likely to be thickening as we head throughout this evening and overnight. A band of rain is going to be pushing its way into the northwest of the UK. Some heavy pulses are possible, and the rain will be quite persistent for the Highlands and Argyll and Bute. Quite windy in amongst all of this as well, particularly around the coastal regions. But if you manage to see some clearer spells across England and Wales, temperatures will at least drop down towards mid-single figures as we do start off Sunday. Nevertheless, that rain is going to be in play across northern areas of the UK. Quite damp, dreary and drab, unfortunately, across the bulk of Scotland to start off Sunday. And the rain will persist here, particularly across western areas of Scotland throughout a good portion of the day. The rain perhaps easing a little bit for Northern Ireland, but certainly it is going to remain fairly grey and cloudy. Still some drizzle will persist. But whilst there'll be some mist and fog around for England and Wales first thing tomorrow morning, that will be clearing off quite readily. And once we head into the late morning, mid-afternoon, there'll be a good amount of sunshine developing across these two nations. So if you're running the marathons in Manchester or London, it will be staying dry. Though with that sunshine, temperatures will be responding, and we'll be seeing highs of 20 to 23 degrees Celsius. So it is going to be rather warm out there for anyone running, and some water will certainly be needed. As we head into the latter stages of Sunday and into Monday, high pressure is trying to build its way in from the continent. But this frontal system in the far north is going to be very slow moving, so still some outbreaks of rain for northern Scotland as we head into the start of the new working week. Elsewhere, though, it is going to be turning dry once again. The sunshine permeating a little bit further north now into parts of more northern England, parts of Northern Ireland and southern Scotland as well. For many of us, it is going to be a nice, fine day. And we can expect more of that as we head throughout the rest of this week. Temperatures likely to be peaking on Wednesday in the mid to high 20s. Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Some breaking news for you now. Joining us is our Home and Security Editor to tell us all about it, Mark White. Mark, have we got you there down the line?
Yes, good evening, Alex. This is an incident that unfolded just before 3 o'clock this afternoon in the Headingley area of Leeds, Ockley Road, to be precise, which is a well-known area frequented by students, a lot of pubs in that area. The Ockley Run is a sort of well-known sort of pub crawl down that particular road. So 2:47 was the time that West Yorkshire Police started receiving multiple calls reporting that a man armed with a number of weapons had gone on to attack people in that area. So, as you can imagine, we had a very significant police response, also other emergency services responding to this incident. Now, West Yorkshire Police say that when they arrived on scene on Ockley Road, they found 3 people all suffering injuries. They've not further described the injuries that these individuals had suffered. However, they have said that the injuries at this time are not thought to be life-threatening. Now, there's no indications of anyone else at this stage who has been injured in this incident. They have now, West Yorkshire Police, confirmed that a man was detained in the area as part of the ongoing investigation. Now, I should say there is video that's circulating that purports to show an individual carrying a number of weapons in that area. We're just working to sort of establish the authenticity of this particular video. As you can imagine, when incidents like this unfold, there is always a lot of chatter on social media. Once again, a lot of chatter on social media indicating that potential threats were made by an individual prior to this incident unfolding. That will form part of the ongoing investigation. The West Yorkshire Police say that at this stage, clearly, it is an investigation in its early stages, so they are working at pace, just like we are, to try to gather all the relevant facts in this particular case. But what we have in this area around Ockley Road, a number of different locations, we're told, where police have established crime scenes. The area around Ockley Road in the Headingley area of Leeds is now sealed off. It is an active crime scene as the police investigate exactly what happened, piece together the minute-by-minute sequence of what happened just after 2:47 this afternoon as they started receiving these first calls. But there's no doubt a serious incident. It sounds like it could have been so much worse, but 3 people that we know at this stage who have been injured, not described as being in a life-threatening condition at this stage, Alex.
And as far as we're aware, Mark, this man has been detained. Relatively shocking that it's happened in broad daylight as well. Do we know if police were quick on the scene?
Well, this is the thing, yes, Saturday afternoon, you're always going to have a lot of people out in that area, as I say, particularly because it is an area frequented by students. It is a very popular sort of pub crawl, the Otley Run, it's known. So lots of students from the local university that are there enjoying, I'm sure, a Saturday night, as the weather has not been too bad, or Saturday afternoon, I should say. So that just adds to the horrific nature of this incident. And as I say, there is video that's circulating that purports to show an individual sort of clad in quite a bit of clothing and appearing to carry a number of weapons. Say, we've not yet bottomed out the authenticity of that particular video, but if we do, we'll endeavour to bring that to you. Now, in terms of any incident like this, understandably the public's attention and suspicions turn to terrorism. What I can say at this stage, speaking to my usual contacts, is I'm not getting any indications back at this stage that they're looking at Islamist terrorism, for instance, as a potential issue that we're seeing unfold here. But it's early days, having said that, so things on the ground can always change. And as we know, the complexity of these attacks that take place these days show us that there can be all manner of motivations and ideologies at play when an individual decides to go on a rampage looking to injure or, worse, kill individuals. So we don't know at this stage the details, any potential motivation, but of course West Yorkshire Police working to bottom that out as quickly as possible, and I'm sure they will know in the wake of the likes of the Southport attacks the urgent need to get messaging out to the wider public to allay fears, to ensure that people are fully informed about what might have unfolded here. So we'll continue to monitor the words from West Yorkshire Police in the minutes and hours ahead.
Mark White, Home and Security Editor there, thank you very much. We'll bring you more on the developments from Leeds as they come. But lots more to come tonight. Our head-to-head. Please don't forget to vote on what topic you'd like us to talk about. Cast your vote on gbnews.com/poll for our Saturday scrap. And we'll be looking at what went down between President Trump and President Zelensky today at the Vatican, this so-called secret meeting. You're with the Saturday 5, live on GB News.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. The second half of the weekend will promise more sunshine around for many of us, particularly across England and Wales. Though for Northern Ireland and Scotland, the cloud is likely to be thickening as we head throughout this evening and overnight. A band of rain is going to be pushing its way into the northwest of the UK. Some heavy pulses are possible, and the rain will be quite persistent for the Highlands and Argyll and Bute. Quite windy in amongst all of this as well, particularly around the coastal regions. But if you manage to see some clearer spells across England and Wales, temperatures will at least drop down towards mid-single figures as we do start off Sunday. Nevertheless, that rain is going to be in play across northern areas of the UK. Quite damp, dreary and drab, unfortunately, across the bulk of Scotland to start off Sunday. And the rain will persist here, particularly across western areas of Scotland throughout a good portion of the day. The rain perhaps easing a little bit for Northern Ireland, but certainly it is going to remain fairly grey and cloudy. Still some drizzle will persist. But whilst there'll be some mist and fog around for England and Wales first thing tomorrow morning, that will be clearing off quite readily. And once we head into the late morning, mid-afternoon, there'll be a good amount of sunshine developing across these two nations. So if you're running the marathons in Manchester or London, it will be staying dry. Though with that sunshine, temperatures will be responding, and we'll be seeing highs of 20 to 23 degrees Celsius. So it is going to be rather warm out there for anyone running, and some water will certainly be needed. As we head into the latter stages of Sunday and into Monday, high pressure is trying to build its way in from the continent. But this frontal system in the far north is going to be very slow moving, so still some outbreaks of rain for northern Scotland as we head into the start of the new working week. Elsewhere, though, it is going to be turning dry once again. The sunshine permeating a little bit further north now into parts of more northern England, parts of Northern Ireland and southern Scotland as well. For many of us, it is going to be a nice, fine day. And we can expect more of that as we head throughout the rest of this week. Temperatures likely to be peaking on Wednesday in the mid to high 20s. Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On Thursday, the 1st of May, voters across England go to the polls.
In a series of council elections.
Mayoral elections and one crucial by-election.
They'll vote on the local issues that matter to them and let the parties know where they stand.
We'll be here throughout the night.
Live around the country.
As the first results come in.
And from 6 a.m. on Friday morning, as it all becomes clearer, we'll be here to discuss what it means for you.
Vote 2025, the people decide, from 11 p.m. on Thursday.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5, the UK's biggest Saturday night TV show. I'm Alex Armstrong, along with Will Kingston, Dr. Renee, Emma Trimble and Matthew Stadlin. Tonight on the show.
It's my favourite segment, more lefty lunacy with triggered tantrums.
OK, so the votes are in on what you want to see debated in the scrap, and is going to be, should we do a trade deal with the EU or the USA? And it's going to be Matt and Will.
I'll be bringing you that big interview on that secret meeting between Trump and Zelensky.
After 8 p.m, we'll be going through all of your comments, so don't forget to send them in because we'll be answering all of them in Ask the Five.
And we will be showing you our high five lightest moments of the week.
It's 7 p.m, and this is the Saturday 5. welcome to the Saturday 5. Please send in your views at gbnews.com/your say. And don't forget to get your questions in for Ask the 5. Nothing is off limits. But before we start tearing each other apart, it's your Saturday Night News with Sophia Wensler.
Alex, thank you. Your headlines at 7 o'clock. Pope Francis has been laid to rest in Rome after an historic open-air funeral attended by world leaders and royalty. More... Where is it? Where is it? More than 1 million people line the streets as his coffin was taken from St. Peter's Square to his favourite church, Santa Maria Maggiore. Prince William, Joe Biden, Donald Trump and Spikiest were among the dignitaries who paid their respects. Over 250,000 mourners viewed the 88-year-old's casket while it laid in state over 3 days. It's the first time in more than a century a pope has been buried outside of the Vatican. Now, Spikiest and Volodymyr Zelensky have agreed to maintain momentum towards peace in Ukraine during a meeting in Rome. Downing Street said the two leaders had discussed recent advances towards ending the Ukraine war. The meeting came on the sidelines of the Pope's funeral, where Zelensky also had a one-on-one with Donald Trump inside St. Peter's Basilica. The Ukrainian president says it was a good meeting and has potential to become historic.
Productive meeting. I don't want to go to a lot of details, if it's possible, because the questions, very sensitive questions on, of course, totally it's about how to bring peace closer and how was resultative, positive Paris and London. And we want to continue such meetings to bring peace to Ukraine.
Meanwhile, President Trump has admitted Putin may be, quote, tapping me along. Taking to social media site Truth Social, he said that maybe Putin doesn't want to stop the war and has to be dealt with separately. Now, some breaking news. 3 people have been injured following a serious incident in Leeds after a man with weapons was arrested on a popular pub crawl route. Officers were called to reports of a man carrying weapons, one of which was thought to be a crossbow. West Yorkshire Police confirmed that a man was located and detained on Otley Road shortly before 3 p.m. today. Officers attended and located 3 people who had suffered injuries, which are at this time not being treated as life-threatening. A number of police officers remain at the scene, and the force added inquiries are in their initial stages to determine the wider circumstances of what has taken place, and further updates will follow. And Virginia Giuffre, who accused Prince Andrew of sexual abuse, has died at the age of 41. Her family say she took her own life at her farm in Western Australia after what they called a lifelong battle with sexual abuse and trafficking. Giuffre sued the Duke of York in 2021, claiming he had sex with her when she was just 17 after being trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. Prince Andrew has always denied the allegations and has not been charged with any crime. If you've been affected by this story, you can contact Samaritans on 116 123 or at jo@samaritans.org. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Let's get straight back to GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White after 3 people have been injured in Leeds following a serious incident there. Thanks for joining us, Mark. What have you got to tell us?
Well, that area in Headingley, or the Headingley area of Leeds, there are a number of active crime scenes and police cordons in place. We can bring you the latest video of police activity, other emergency services in that area. This is Otley Road, or at least the area around Otley Road in Leeds. It's well known and populated very often by students from the universities in Leeds who do the Otley Run, basically a pub crawl of the various pubs along this area of Leeds. Now, this incident unfolded shortly before 3 o'clock. Calls started coming in to the emergency services. The first of those calls at 2:47 this afternoon, reporting that a man armed with a number of weapons began attacking people in that area. Now, there are multiple reports suggesting that a man was armed with weapons including crossbow, firearms, a baseball bat. That hasn't been confirmed as yet by West Yorkshire Police, just that they responded to reports of a man carrying weapons. Armed response officers as well as unarmed officers converging on that scene along with paramedics. Now, what they say is that 3 people have been injured. They are describing the injuries as non-life-threatening at this stage. No indications that anyone other than those 3 people have been injured. They also confirmed that a man was arrested in that area, now of course in police custody as inquiries continue to establish exactly what happened here, what the potential motivation might have been for this unfolding incident. But clearly very serious, very worrying, could have been even worse but for the very swift emergency service response.
Trope of our political class that the first thing we hear from them after something like this is warning against Islamophobia, and the second thing we normally hear is warning against the dangers of misinformation. Have we heard anything from any politicians yet, or is it still too early?
It's far too early for that. We just don't know as the police. I mean, they may have an indication by now. It was a couple of hours ago, or more now, of course, that this individual was brought into custody. But it depends how cooperative this person is being, what they have found out in terms of anything he might have said or even posted online. There are, as you would imagine, as we always get in an incident like this, various reports on social media indicating an individual was planning an attack and posted various statements to that effect on social media. Now, whether that is truly linked to this individual or not, we don't know at this stage, but that will be clearly uppermost in the minds of the detectives as they go forward, piecing together exactly what happened here. So in terms of the motivation, we just don't know as yet. But all we can really say is that when we see these attacks, there can be multiple potential motivations and ideologies at play. We only need to think back, of course, to Southport to realise just how messy that incident was, with initially people believing it was Islamist inspired, the authorities saying absolutely it wasn't, only for later down the road for the Prime Minister himself to admit that yes, there was an element of terrorism related to that case, that the individual concerned had been looking at Al-Qaeda related documents, had been trying to make a biological weapon. So these incidents are never straightforward. They can be highly complex. They can take detectives a while to bottom out exactly what is at play here. But at the moment, there's nothing that we are being told that points to one particular motivation or ideology.
OK, thank you very much. That's GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White. We'll bring you more on that as it develops. Coming up next, and a bit of a change of topic, we'll be talking about President Trump and President Zelensky's talk at the Vatican today. It's their first meeting since that infamous Oval Office bust-up. Plus, that hotly anticipated Saturday scrap. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're
Proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Can you find love in your twilight years? That's what we're asking this morning. Broadcaster Ryan Mark Parsons and former Conservative MP Anne Widdecombe join us now. Good to see you both this morning. Anne, let's start with you. Is 70 too old to date, do you think?
70 isn't too old for anything. Everybody ages at different rates, both mentally, physically, in the sorts of things they like. When you say to me, is 80 too late to, is 70, well, we might even say 80. It's too late to find love. The answer is just look around you. Lots of people have. But let me say right away, no, that's not an invitation. I've absolutely no ambitions in that area at all.
Ryan Mark, what do you make of it? Do we need to stop putting a bar on ageing and dating?
No, I don't think we should. I think once you get to such an old age, you really should be looking for love internally. I mean, you should self-love. I just don't see the point at 70 years old to be searching for love at that point. I think you should go on a holiday somewhere. I think you should find love with the sunshine and a cocktail, perhaps, instead of looking for a man or a woman. I think at what point do you decide that, you know, love is not going to come around knocking on your door? And I think probably at the age of 70, that is when you should decide it's time to give up. I'm 24, living in London. I know how incredibly hard it is to find love. I don't know how anyone who has wrinkles and grey hair at the age of 70, over someone like me, could perhaps find love. I just don't think it's possible. I think it's a nice idea, but I think it's not feasible. And also, I don't think there's any point at that age.
The People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Please get in contact with us at gbnews.com/yoursay and get those questions in for Ask the 5. Thank you for many of them so far. I'm just going to read out a very, very quick one for you. Bashful Barry says multiculturalism in Britain has totally failed, and these crime figures we're talking about the debate earlier on prove so. Foreigners invade our soft nation to gorge on all the freebies. I can't read out the full thing because I haven't got enough time. But anyway, what's coming up next? Now it's time for tonight's main event. Should the UK be cozying up to a trade deal with the EU or kissing up to the US? Seconds out, it is round one. OK, who's going first?
I'll take it first. Once again, slick graphics. Now, earlier this week, Rachel Reeves made the argument that we should potentially be cozying up to the European Union over the US when it comes to trade. Now, I'm a free trade kind of guy. If I had my way, we'd be signing free trade deals left, right and centre. We should be targeting free trade deals with both. At the same time, in trade, sometimes you need to make strategic choices. Favoured nation status, all that sort of stuff. And if push does come to shove, it is absolutely inarguable that the US should take priority when it comes to trade negotiations. And it's very simple as to why, and that is the European economy is dying and the US economy is one of the few in the world that still shows signs of solid growth. And it is forecast to continue to grow at a stronger rate than the EU for the foreseeable future. In fact, I would say ad infinitum. This is very, very straightforward. You want to back the winning horse. And in this instance, the US is the winning horse. But above and beyond that, if you think that the EU is not going to railroad us, you are sadly mistaken. The EU holds a grudge, and they certainly haven't forgotten about Brexit, and they would certainly put a gun to our heads in any trade negotiation. The other thing I would say is that trade and military relationships are inextricably linked, and free trade deals often come with a military component at the same time. And when the current military situation in the UK is so powerless, when we don't have the ability to defend ourselves, we need the strength of the military alliance with the US. That takes precedence over the EU, because the EU, quite frankly, also doesn't have the ability to defend itself. This is a no-brainer.
Yeah, I'm going to try and persuade you that Will suggesting this is inarguable is completely wrong. And the main reason I would suggest is that if you look at our export and import relationship, first of all with the EU and then with the United States, it hugely favours the EU. So, for example, our exports to the EU are around about 41% of our overall exports. Our imports from the EU, around about 51% of our overall imports. You look at the United States, and as far as I understand it, our imports are around about 10% of our overall imports, and our exports are about 16% of our overall exports. Now, that might sound a bit nerdy getting deep into the figures, but they matter, because what we can't afford to do is further alienate the European Union, when as a bloc they are overwhelmingly our biggest trading partner. Just a quick point as well about America. There's huge uncertainty and unpredictability about what's happening with the United States, precisely because of the hugely unpredictable nature of their president. And Will, as a free trade sort of guy, will be, I'm sure, devastated that Trump has done so much to damage free trade around the world and also to harm us here in Britain with, for example, those big tariffs on steel.
I am, is the short answer to that final point. What Matthew put out there, though, is the current trading relationship between the EU and the UK and the US and the UK. And the fact of the matter is that those balances have to change if the UK wants to grow again, because at the moment, the growth is anemic. And we have to position ourselves with the US moving forward, because their economy is going to be stronger considerably than the EU in the future.
You're mistaking different things here, you're confusing different things. Even if the American economy does grow, that does not mean to say that we should jeopardise our biggest trading relationship, in other words, with the European Union, which we have managed to sustain despite Brexit and despite any grudges that you may think the EU bears us, and perhaps they do bear some. These are different categories, different things. If the American economy goes well, that's fantastic. That doesn't mean to say that we should jeopardise our relationship with our biggest trading partner.
OK, I want to bring in the rest of the panel. Emma, what do you make of this? Should we be cozying? Who do you think is right here? Should we be cozying up to the EU, or is that Brexit betrayal, or should we be going to Donald Trump? There's uncertainty there.
I definitely don't think we should be cozying up to the EU. I think the writing's on the wall for the EU as an entity in the long term. I just think that it can't hold itself together indefinitely. Look, I think that we should, not keep all of our eggs in one basket at all. But if the EU were to have certain stipulations, we know that they like to impose lots of rules. If they were to impose rules on us that would jeopardise our ability to make trade deals with other countries around the world, including the United States, then we should prioritise the country that has the freest trade. Now, I know, obviously, Donald Trump has all of this sort of back and forth on tariffs. I don't think that we should have a bad relationship with the EU, but I certainly don't think it should be cosy.
Renee?
Yeah, I agree. Certainly we shouldn't ostracise the EU. They're a big trading partner, as you rightly say. But I do think that the EU has demonstrated that it is a failed state. It really is, in terms of an economy. Everything is tanking there. At least somebody in America, Trump, whether you like him or hate him, he's a disruptor. And I anticipate that where we will get to on all of these tariffs, and I know you hate them, we've argued over this before, is we'll get to free trade. We really will. There will be a situation where, all of those tariffs will be dropped and there'll be free trade. And that, I think, would be a great thing for the world.
Yeah, well, we've spoken about this, and my concern is there are two contradictory arguments going on here. There is, number one, we want to reindustrialise America, and number two, we want to set forth this new era of free trade, and those two arguments are contradictory. So they're going to have to make one choice there, and again, the choice I really hope is that we do have an era of free trade, but we're not seeing that necessarily at the moment.
Just to end, if we are ending on a rare area of agreement between William and myself, and that is that, of course, we should try and have our cake and eat it. And we should try and get the best possible terms with both the EU and America. You're right to say that there may be some clashes of interests, and we've got to be incredibly careful in the way that we navigate them, and there will be civil servants who are working 24 hours a day, right around the clock, to try and get us the best possible deal.
You know what I think, and this is the biggest problem. We saw this steel plant, obviously, that's owned by a Chinese man, really exposed how this country is at the headwind of globalisation. Now, whatever happens, whether there's a trade deal done with the EU or America, hopefully we can have both, because growth for Britain is the most important thing for me. I don't want it to come at the cost of more of our national sovereignty. We have to protect British businesses, particularly the ones that are critical to our infrastructure, critical to our national security.
It's almost too late, though, isn't it? I mean, we've got one blast furnace, 2 blast furnaces left in the country, and we still don't know the future of that. And they're talking about changing that to green, which won't be good for anything. So who knows, Alex? You're right. But if we don't reindustrialise quickly, we are sunk.
Yeah, I think America has probably nailed this one. But anyway, moving on, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thanked Donald Trump for a potentially historic one-to-one meeting in St. Peter's Basilica, of all places. That happened before the funeral of Pope Francis. It was the first time the pair had met since that explosive Oval Office encounter in February. The US president took to Truth Social shortly after the meeting to question his Russian counterpart, get this, Vladimir Putin's willingness to end the war. Trump has said there was no reason for Putin to be shooting missiles into civilian areas, cities and towns over the last few days. It makes me think that maybe he doesn't want to stop the war. Too many people are dying, ! So, could this be the end of the war, or maybe this could be Trump's moment to come to the aid of Zelensky, despite all of the drama that's gone on in the middle there? To discuss this, I am pleased to welcome former senior advisor to the Trump campaign, William Russell. Welcome, William. Quite a change of tone there from Donald Trump. He seems to be batting more so for Zelensky there. That's a real change in his usual rhetoric. Are we seeing signs now that Trump is going to fall down on the side of Zelensky over Putin?
Some audio issues there, sorry. First of all, thank you for having me. I think this is all part of the gamesmanship that Donald Trump plays on the international stage, right? We've seen him take the side of what would appear Vladimir Putin a couple months back with his meeting with Zelensky, and now we're seeing the flip side when he's putting direct pressure on Vladimir Putin. And I would say this is all kind of part of the deal. This is what Donald Trump has always done. He's going to push both sides in a certain direction, and he's going to play each side depending on where they are in the negotiation. And very much to the point that the president made in the Oval a couple of months back, why would he concede anything, especially in a public manner, just in the middle of a negotiation? That's not how a negotiation works, right? This is a closed door. These are closed conversations that they're having, and he's going to use the bully pulpit that he has to push either side in the direction that he needs them to go, depending on the situation.
So would you argue, William, that this is kind of Trump's business sort of rhetoric that he's quite used to? You're playing both sides until he gets the right deal. Is this the sort of thing we're expecting from Trump's? Is this sort of his foreign policy now? Almost.
I think this is exactly what you're seeing right now, and that's part of the beauty of having a businessman as a president, right? He's going to take a different tact and a different tone to each conversation that he's going to have, regardless of who the audience is or regardless of who he's operating with. And I think because of that relationship that he's had, those years of experiences that he's had as a businessman, it's playing in on a national and international stage. I mean, we're seeing our own negotiations here at home with businesses that are bringing in products with the tariffs that we've levied against foreign countries, and now we're seeing this in the Russian-Ukraine conflict. And I would assume inevitably this leads to some sort of conversation at the end of the day with President Xi in China to try to reestablish some communications. But each situation is different, and the president is attuned and very adept at making his way through each kind of nuance of international relationship.
Before I throw it off to my panel, we just want to remind the audience of that infamous moment in the Oval Office in February.
Not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. But right now, you don't. Yeah, you're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Hello, William. I mean, everybody remembers that awful interview, don't they? And I think some of us felt sorry for Zelensky at the end of that. This looks to me like he's now decided that he needs to apply some pressure on Putin, and being seen across the world at probably the biggest TV event that will happen this year, sitting next to Zelensky, looking very friendly, deep in thought and speech. Will that apply pressure on Putin, and do you think that's Trump's intention?
I would assume so. I mean, the president is very good at the showmanship. I mean, every move that he makes is a statement, whether you know it's a statement or not, right? And I think that having strategically let loose on some of these photos that are now making their way around the internet, kind of it shows that there is still a relationship with Vladimir Zelensky, and that's part of the point that he's trying to make to Putin, is like there are both sides to this equation. I mean, part of a negotiation, you have to talk to both sides. I would say that both leaders, both Putin and Zelensky, understand that no one's winning this war. They're both losing this war right now, and I think that the more that they get caught up, more that they get deeper into these negotiations, the more that they're going to run afoul every now and then. They're going to have some disagreements, but that's the beauty of Donald Trump stepping in and having this. Again, I refer back to the bully pulpit. He has the ability to change media narratives. He has the ability to weigh in on an international scale and draw eyeballs to him and exactly what he's doing, which is exactly what the move that he's made here. This is on par for everything that he does from a global perspective, in my opinion.
Interesting.
William, it's good to speak to you. I'm amazed, though, that you think that your president has the first clue as to what he's up to. This is a man who said very clearly that he would solve this war in 24 hours. Indeed, that if he were re-elected, he would solve it before he actually took up the presidency for a second time. We are now months into the Trump presidency, and so far he's managed to make a total mess of it. He hasn't, it seems, so far brought us any closer to peace. Ukrainians are still dying in vast numbers. Russians, forced some of them to the battlefield by Putin, are dying in huge numbers. I'm astonished that you can't see this and that you think this is all sort of part of the art of the deal. Your president has blamed Ukraine, a sovereign country, for being invaded by another country. That is the long and the short of it. It seems to me he says whatever the most recent person to speak to him wants him to say. In this case today, it was Zelensky. So now he's saying, oh, well, what was President Putin doing, firing rockets into civilian areas of Kiev? This is what he's been doing since 2022. Was that a question?
I know.
Well, it's kind of a statement that he's just made at me, and that's fine. Like, I appreciate the fact that there must be some sort of language barrier between y'all and me. Like, the way I listen to Donald Trump is not in a very literal sense with every word that he says. Some of what he says is tongue-in-cheek. It's part of the showmanship that he exudes. Now, I would refer you back to back in 2016, 2017, when he was accused of doing one of two things. He was either an absolute imbecile with the way that he ran the country, and we couldn't have this animal become president, or he colluded with Russia to steal the presidential election in 2017, and he's an absolute evil genius. You need to figure out, and this is exactly another example, figure out which one it's going to be. Is he an absolute imbecile, or is he playing a statesmanship role and utilizing the social media avenues that he has, the relationships that he has on an international scale to try to achieve something that ultimately we all want, which is no more war in Ukraine and to have both of these countries go back to existing on its own. I firmly believe, and the president has postured throughout his entire time, the first term and this term, he doesn't want new wars, and he doesn't want the U.S. to be engaged in wars. So why in the world would you think that he's actively trying to subvert his own narrative when it comes to the Ukraine-Russia conflict?
I mean, I would argue, I'd love to bring in Emma in just a second, but I would argue he's been right about so many things in the past. I never forget that famous moment where he was laughed at by the German delegation when he warned of their reliance on Russian oil and gas, how well that went for them afterwards. But over to you, Emma.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you really about whether or not there is something more clever going on here, because, of course, J.D. Vance was there just before the Pope passed away. There have been tense relationships between the Pope, between the papacy and the United States administration. And then for this meeting to be taking place at the Vatican on such a momentous day. And of course, we know that there is a very good relationship between Donald Trump and Giorgia Meloni. I wondered whether or not you think actually there's another sort of plane to the multi-dimensional chess that's going on here.
I don't know. That's the one thing, the kind of hookup with when you're standing on the outside and watching these men do their work. It's tough to say. I mean, the only thing that we can look at is what they're posturing, how they're posturing, and what's being put out in the world right now. And Donald Trump is breaking news once again and stepping into the fray and working with Zelensky. I think all of this entire conversation, when it comes to not just the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but kind of the different power sectors that are in the Far East like that. I view all of this as there are conversations happening that obviously we don't know about, and all of it obviously is to reach the end goal of ending this war in Ukraine. And I think specifically for the Trump administration, our focus will be primarily on China and how do we neutralize China, because the Trump administration has made clear that China is an existential threat to the U.S. And I think part of bringing this conflict to resolution is to also bring Putin back to the table. I mean, let's remember, President Biden refused to engage with Russia for 4 years. So this is kind of a nuanced position that Donald Trump seems to be taking moving forward.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for joining us. William Russell, former senior advisor to the Trump campaign. We'll see you again very soon. But now it's time for the Great British Giveaway, and it's our biggest prize to date. Here's all the details.
You could be spending your summer in style on the road in this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure. Imagine the fun you could have in this luxurious home from home worth over £67,000. It sleeps 4, comes with integrated kitchen and bathroom spaces, and comfortably has space for all the family. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash to make your next getaway a great one. It's our biggest prize package ever, and it could be all yours. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come tonight.
Fighting hoaxsters. This group, no, this group right here, full of hoaxsters.
Yes. It's my favourite part of the show is triggered tantrums. I'll reveal what that's all about then. But next, cosmic giant Lush has launched a trans visibility campaign following the UK Supreme Court's ruling on the definition of a woman. Dr. Renee is going to dive into that in our Bunch of 5. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you are thinking of heading south for a holiday, it's looking sunny in Spain, but very wet in Sardinia, whilst Greece is currently experiencing showers and they'll continue into Sunday. Keen breeze here as well, particularly for the islands. Showers also for Italy, but mostly inland and over higher ground. It's Sardinia and also Majorca where we're likely to see some lively thunderstorms, whilst plenty of sunshine prevails across Spain. And Portugal, more sunshine to come through the week ahead.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good afternoon, Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
From a PETA point of view, see you guys are in the newspapers today, PETA, and it's about the definition of a rat. Have you seen this story?
Yeah, I have indeed. And, you know, rats are individuals. And of course, we want everyone to respect all animals. But one point I would like to raise is that, you know, we mention animals who are going extinct. There are over 2,000 species right now that are on the endangered list.
Well, rats
and there are
won't be one
thousands
of them.
more. Well, you know, rats are important as well, but we're here to talk about, you know, the dire wolves. And it's important to point out that we need to think about what's going to happen to these animals once they're released back into the wild, because this is really complicated.
Yes,
and we need to remember that humans don't have a good track record of our treatment of wolves. Thousands are being culled as we speak due to perceived overpopulation problems. So why are scientists trying to bring back more of these animals when their cousins are being blasted out of their homes? It doesn't make sense, and we need to focus our efforts on protecting animals that are already here.
I get that. Just to say, a rat, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, is a small rodent. The noun can mean also an unpleasant person who deceives others or is not loyal. And you guys think that's unfair to rats and you want it redesignated and redescribed. And I don't know if James Cagney would appreciate with you, you know, because I think when he was going, you dirty rat, I don't think that he was really wanting anybody kind or nice coming to him or whatever, but that's historic film.
Well, look, this is a completely friendly request, and we want to encourage everyone to respect all animals. Rats are lovely creatures, they're intelligent, and they're actually very clean. So, you know, this was a friendly request to the Oxford Dictionary, just to right a simple wrong.
OK.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Please get in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay and get your questions in for Ask the Five. I've got some here ready to go for the next hour, but I'll read one out just from a moment ago. Diane says, certainly won't be buying any products from Lush anytime soon. We're talking about that in just a minute. Looks like they've chosen their side. Will it be the right one? OK, well, now it's time for this. Yeah, this is our bunch of five with that beautiful new graphic, isn't it? It's great. Will, what have you got for us?
Sexy stuff, Alex. Yeah, an article in The Sun piqued my curiosity this morning. Is the bank branch dying? We've seen in this, up to date this year, hundreds of bank branches have been closing their doors across the United Kingdom. It's forecast that next month a further 83 bank branches will be closing across the UK. Now, I get it, digital banking is efficient, it's convenient, it's cheaper to deliver, and we're heading into a digital world. At the same time, there is a certain comfort that comes with speaking to someone in your local branch. particularly for more complex transactions like mortgages. So my question to the panel is, are you concerned about the death of the bank branch?
Yeah, well, I certainly am. I think banks are holding your money. Your money is your freedom, is your livelihood, and for there not to be a physical place for people to go to get support, particularly I think of our elderly generation who are not savvy on. It's hard enough to get hold of customer support. They take you through this maze of dialing up and speaking down the phone, and it just should be able. You should be able to walk in somewhere and speak to someone. It's common sense.
Yeah, I had to go into a bank this week, which I don't have to do very often. And I had to first of all Google where my nearest bank was, and then drive there. It was so far. And then when I got there was a long queue, and there's somebody in the bank who works their way along the queue to ask you if you really need to be in the bank.
Well, quickly on to you, Renee, actually, while you're here.
On to me for my bunch of five. So I'm looking at Lush this week, who've decided after the Supreme Court ruling that they are going to stand strong with the trans activists, and they've actually produced for their windows and on their website an ad, and it has all sorts of things in it. Here we can see it, that wouldn't it be lovely if the world was all cuddly for trans people, basically. But there's on the back of that skateboard there, they want to see a world where GPs give gender-affirming care for children. You know what? As a doctor and a GP, I don't want to give damaging gender-affirming care as per the Cass report to children. I want to get them the therapy they need to work out why they're so mentally distressed. Why do these luxury firms have to take these luxury ideals and decide they're going to virtue signal at the detriment to our children?
Well, we have reached out to Lush, by the way, for a right for reply, but we haven't heard back from them just yet. Matthew, what do you make of that?
I have a lot of empathy and sympathy for people who are, and I hate this word when it's used because it's often used disingenuously, but I don't mean it disingenuously, genuinely trans people. And again, that doesn't mean that I think you can change your biology, but we do know, and we've known this for centuries, that some people feel they're born into the wrong body.
Generally mentally unwell.
And for people, no, I don't think we can call people who are trans mentally unwell. Do I think that
literally a mental disability?
No, it's not. Do I think that children should be encouraged or helped in any way to change their bodies irreversibly? No, I do not. There is nuance in this conversation, and it should be had, in my view, without hate.
Yeah, nuance that Lush doesn't have. And I think the fact that so many people who do experience gender dysphoria end up desisting if they're just left to, or if they get proper support, suggests that actually, I mean, Lush has no expertise in this, right? They have no business. And actually, Lush have form in radical politics.
Well, I want to change the topic slightly onto my story. This caught my eye. I just couldn't believe it when I saw this week. The Daily Mirror put out a post on social media. I don't know if it was printed in their newspapers as well, but it says here, heat wave horror as Britain forecasts mega 22 degrees hotter than Ibiza.
Shocking.
Hot heat wave, 22 degrees. Are they having a laugh? It's glorious weather. It's a La Nina year. Google that if you're not sure. I haven't got time to tell everyone. But this is pretty typical. Every 4 years we get this lovely bout of nice weather. There's nothing climate craziness going on in the newspapers, Will.
I actually am not pointing to climate craziness here because I think the mild heatwave trope has always been one of the great traditions of British journalism.
Heat
and
bomb.
as an Australian, I find it particularly funny. So I say good on them. I think it's hilarious whenever it comes up.
You
And it actually makes international news.
You noticed that actually when people were distracted by the pandemic and we had one of these lovely hot years, everybody was just basking in the sun and talking about how lovely the weather was because they had something else to be weird about. Well, speaking of being weird, the experiments are set to begin on dimming the sun. Apparently the government has approved these plans and they are going to be doing things like looking into injecting aerosols into the atmosphere, which if you remember, when I was a child, it was all the thing you were supposed to spray aerosols because it was going to do some damage to the ozone layer, and something that they call brightening the clouds in order to reflect sunshine. And they're doing all of this to the tune of £50 million of our money. It's just, I mean, talk about Icarus flying too close to the sun. It's just so hubristic.
It's mad. This is the same government that is buying solar panels from China, right? Because they want more. They want to capture the sunlight. This is the same government that's telling you, that you've got to have. We need more sunlight for our solar panels, and yet they're bonkers. These people. Do they not look out the window? 90% of the time, this country is grey, miserable skies. Get a grip.
There is literally a Simpsons episode where one of Mr. Burns' evil scheme, the massive metal circular object to block out the stun. Starmer is turning into the Mr. Burns that will give this character more by the moment.
You just can't make it up.
Also, they're always talking
crazy
about how complex the climate is and how things, you know, the butterfly effect, small things make horrific changes. Well, what do they think this kind of experimentation might do?
On to your story, Matthew.
So I'm a late substitute. I haven't got a story. I wasn't aware of this particular section. However, I could improvise.
Improvise
but just to come back to something that we talked about earlier, the idea that the President of America, whatever he's now said to Zelensky, which seems a little bit more pro-Zelensky, the idea that he actually thinks that Ukraine is responsible for being invaded is one of the most absurd and frightening things I think I've ever heard emerge from the Oval Office. May I just briefly come back on one of yours as well, this point about banks closing down, because I have a huge amount of empathy for particularly older people, as you say, who would like to continue to use that service. And yes, we are moving to a digital age, but these people matter. And quite recently, I was asked to go into a branch in order to take money out. It was not possible to do it either online or on the phone, and yet there was no particularly local branch. And if you're older and you don't have a car, that's a problem. But even more important, by the way, than that, I think the closure of so many police stations that I think we've seen in recent years, that for me is very disturbing because I think we need to have a much more intimate, proximate relationship with the police force than simply calling 101 or if it's an emergency 999.
I absolutely agree with you, Matthew. Both those points.
There we go.
We've got some consensus on the panel side. Don't you love to see it? Still to come tonight. You're going to be back. Trust me, that is it is bonkers. It's bonkers.
It's even weirder than it looks.
It really is. It seriously is. You don't want to miss it. That's Triggered Tantrums. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. The second half of the weekend will promise more sunshine around for many of us, particularly across England and Wales. Though for Northern Ireland and Scotland, the cloud is likely to be thickening as we head throughout this evening and overnight. A band of rain is going to be pushing its way into the northwest of the UK. Some heavy pulses are possible and the rain will be quite persistent for the Highlands and Argyll and Bute. Quite windy in amongst all of this as well, particularly around the coastal regions. But if you manage to see some clearer spells across England and Wales, temperatures will at least drop down towards mid-single figures as we do start off Sunday. Nevertheless, that rain is going to be in play across northern areas of the UK. Quite damp, dreary and drab, unfortunately, across the bulk of Scotland to start off Sunday. And the rain will persist here, particularly across western areas of Scotland throughout a good portion of the day. The rain perhaps easing a little bit for Northern Ireland, but certainly it is going to remain fairly grey and cloudy. Still some drizzle will persist. But whilst there'll be some mist and fog around for England and Wales first thing tomorrow morning, that will be clearing off quite readily. And once we head into the late morning, mid-afternoon, there'll be a good amount of sunshine developing across these two nations. So if you're running the marathons in Manchester or London, it will be staying dry. Though with that sunshine, temperatures will be responding and we'll be seeing highs of 20 to 23 degrees Celsius. So it is going to be rather warm out there for anyone running, and some water will certainly be needed. As we head into the latter stages of Sunday and into Monday, high pressure is trying to build its way in from the continent, but this frontal system in the far north is going to be very slow moving, so still some outbreaks of rain for northern Scotland as we head into the start of the new working week. Elsewhere, though, it is going to be turning dry once again, the sunshine permeating a little bit further north now into parts of more northern England, parts of Northern Ireland and southern Scotland as well. For many of us, it is going to be a nice fine day. And we can expect more of that as we head throughout the rest of this week. Temperatures likely to be peaking on Wednesday in the mid to high 20s. Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day.
bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Your comments are keeping us lively here in the break. I'm going to read this one out in a second. Welcome back to Saturday 5. Coming up from 8 p.m. is After 5, of course. Please send your questions through to gbnews.com/shortstay. Before we move on, I'm just going to read this because it's had us in hysterics here. Ian Gordon has just said, block out the sun. This happens already. It's called night. Thanks, Ian from Lewisham. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. We love your comments. Yes, but now it's time for Triggered Tantrums. You've got a free ticket to this week's Ringmasters of Rage, Clowns of Collapse and Acrobats of Absurdity, tumbling all over zilch. Just wait until you see this lot. Will, over to you.
Yeah, Alex, and I'm sorry, we've got George Clooney coming up, and I'm sorry to put you through that smug, joyless, earnest, supercilious thing that the left does so well, and he is a master of it. But unfortunately, I have to, because he's put his journalistic credentials, George Clooney, the actor, against 25-year veteran Megyn Kelly. Let's see what he said.
Don't tell people what to think. When we show that montage at the end, for instance, you see Megyn Kelly. She's who's come out and said, you know, I'm not a journalist. I didn't say I was a journalist.
Neither is she, by the way. Anyway,
but I'm not quite sure what she's done. I've at least been to, Darfur and Sudan and the Congo and been shot at and to try to get stories out. I'm not quite sure what she has done to be a journalist.
Yeah.
Right. Do you know what? Of all the things there, it's the hair for me. I don't know what's going on with it. He must be doing a role or something, but
it's a Broadway show.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. Not a great. Poor
And anyway,
George.
don't diss Megyn Kelly.
Yeah.
The woman's a
Am
goddess.
I really on a Saturday night television programme where a member of the panel has just told George Clooney that he hasn't got a good look?
Yes, yes.
I mean, the scripts write themselves.
OK, who wants to go next?
OK, so it's me. So have you noticed, guys, that the Pope died not long after meeting J.D. Vance? That Trump didn't touch the Bible when he was sworn in? That the Pope has spoken out against the US? And the Pope has spoken out against migration being shunned around the world? Well, just look at this. There's a reason for that.
So by now you should have heard that the Pope has died on Easter Monday, no less. And we don't know what's crazier, the timing of all of this, or the fact that this happened just hours he had met J.D. Vance. And for many people, if this is not a subtle foreshadowing for the future of America, especially considering that Trump didn't even touch the Bible when he was swearing in this time round, I don't know what is. Now, what's especially upsetting to me with regards to the Pope's death is not just the fact that he died, but it's the fact that over the past year alone, he has spoken up against this administration. Pearl, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't even think the previous popes had condemned Trump as much as Pope Francis did when he was last in power.
She's an even better journalist than George Clooney.
Yeah,
Basically, the Americans killed the Pope.
It's just so bonkers. This is the thing about TikTok, isn't it? They just go wild with these conspiracy theories, gagging for views and engagement. It's totally bonkers, isn't it? What on earth would J.D. Vance have to kill the Pope for? I mean, it would have to be one of the most incredibly complex plans in history. Quite shocking. It really is. Well, while I'm talking, I want to show you mine because, every week or so we get these people across the world, mostly in America, but we do get them here as well. This one's an American, and she has... Obviously, this is about Palestine, of course, and Gaza, and a lot of Jewish people are putting up balloons to remember the victims, but also to talk about bringing back the hostages. Have a look at this.
This is the people that live in our town that decide to take our balloons down and destroy the environment, but she's all for Palestine.
Yeah, University of Palestine, Jerusalem.
This is the people. Look at her face. If you know her,
so much prettier than you.
Unfortunately, it's a sad situation.
My neighbor who doesn't need to see this, especially from your targeted harassment, which is very targeted to my neighbor, clearly. Honestly, you're on the wrong side, honey. There's 100,000 dead, and this is how you act. It's the new norm. You're on the wrong side of history.
So what she has on their arm there is allegedly she says that's the word intifada is tattooed on her arm there. Crazy.
And she wasn't really a she, was she?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't even want to ask anyone.
Once stop being trans.
Anyway, right.
Don't go
anywhere. Coming up, it's the Saturday 5 Extra. This is where we lay our hair down, have a pint, and anything could happen. Get ready. We'll be back in a moment. Next is your weather.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. The second half of the weekend will promise more sunshine around for many of us, particularly across England and Wales. Though for Northern Ireland and Scotland, the cloud is likely to be thickening as we head throughout this evening and overnight. A band of rain is going to be pushing its way into the northwest of the UK. Some heavy pulses are possible, and the rain will be quite persistent for the Highlands and Argyll and Bute. Quite windy in amongst all of this as well, particularly around the coastal regions. But if you manage to see some clearer spells across England and Wales, temperatures will at least drop down towards mid-single figures as we do start off Sunday. Nevertheless, that rain is going to be in play across northern areas of the UK. Quite damp, dreary and drab, unfortunately, across the bulk of Scotland to start off Sunday. And the rain will persist here, particularly across western areas of Scotland throughout a good portion of the day. The rain perhaps easing a little bit for Northern Ireland, but certainly it is going to remain fairly grey and cloudy. Still some drizzle will persist. But whilst there'll be some mist and fog around for England and Wales first thing tomorrow morning, that will be clearing off quite readily. And once we head into the late morning, mid-afternoon, there'll be a good amount of sunshine developing across these two nations. So if you're running the marathons in Manchester or London, it will be staying dry. Though with that sunshine, temperatures will be responding, and we'll be seeing highs of 20 to 23 degrees Celsius. So it is going to be rather warm out there for anyone running, and some water will certainly be needed. As we head into the latter stages of Sunday and into Monday, high pressure is trying to build its way in from the continent. But this frontal system in the far north is going to be very slow moving. So still some outbreaks of rain for northern Scotland as we head into the start of the new working week. Elsewhere, though, it is going to be turning dry once again. The sunshine permeating a little bit further north now into parts of more northern England, parts of Northern Ireland and southern Scotland as well. For many of us, it is going to be a nice, fine day. And we can expect more of that as we head throughout the rest of this week. Temperatures likely to be peaking on Wednesday in the mid to high 20s. Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
On Thursday, the 1st of May, voters across England go to the polls.
In a series of council elections.
Mayoral elections. And one crucial by-election.
They'll vote on the local issues that matter to them and let the parties know where they stand.
We'll be here throughout the night.
Live around the country.
As the first results come in.
And from 6 a.m. on Friday morning, as it all becomes clearer, we'll be here to discuss what it means for you.
Vote 2025, the people decide, from 11 p.m. on Thursday.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5, the UK's biggest Saturday night TV show. We've got our beers. I'm Alex Armstrong, along with Will Kingston, Dr. Renee, Emma Trimble, and Matthew Stadlen. Tonight on the show,
more woke whinging with triggered tantrums.
We're going to